Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here at the Dakota, and brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr, and today I am joined by one of the key figures in the City of Minot, and that is our Community and Economic Development Director, Brian Billingsley. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Absolutely. So you started this position a couple years ago in 2019, is that correct?
Yeah, 5 years now.
5 years. That's crazy how time flies.
It sure does.
Immediately you get into town and you're getting your feet wet and COVID hits and all the dynamics I'm sure that brought about, very difficult, I'm sure, for your position specifically, let alone the whole dynamic where you're trying to do that development. But let's go back to Caldwell, Idaho. You get the interest in the position. Why Minot?
Well, actually, I was born and raised in Illinois, Jonathan,
okay.
And I spent the first 12 or 13 years of my career working in my hometown in Illinois.
That's very neat.
And I grew up in a small farm town. I worked in a nearby community of about 27,000 people, so about half the size of Minot, but it was only an hour away from Chicago.
And that's the interesting thing about Illinois is people think of Chicago, and that's a huge city, but there's actually a lot of diversity in Illinois in the types of city types and stuff.
Yes, there is. I was fortunate to grow up in a place where you're close enough to enjoy all the great things of Chicago, but also fortunate enough to be away from all the bad things of Chicago.
Right,
so.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So you have a position there, and then eventually you make it out to Caldwell, Idaho.
Yep.
So why Caldwell? That's a big transition then.
It sure was a big transition. I was ready for something new in my life, something different. I've always wanted to live out west.
Okay.
So I got the experience of enjoying the Intermountain West.
Right.
And not just Idaho, but all of the western states. I was able to do a lot of traveling while I lived out there.
Ever make it to Oregon?
Yeah. A few times. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I'm originally from.
Okay.
My grandparents lived in Caldwell, Idaho for a spell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and Caldwell, Idaho probably sounds like a place in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, but really it's right next to Boise. It's pretty good community right there.
It's in the Boise metropolitan area. It's the fourth biggest city in the state. It's bigger than Minot, actually. It has about close to 70,000 people there today. When I moved there in 2005, they only had a population of about 33,000. They've experienced a lot of population growth there.
I remember that in the 08 time frame, 09, it seemed like Boise was exploding during that time frame.
Yep. And I was in the middle of all that.
Yeah, that's a blast. That's neat. Well, we were both in Caldwell at the same time because I did visit my grandparents during that time. So would you look at that? We never met directly, but our paths did cross somehow. But then you get the interest in Minot. What brought you to Minot?
Again, I was ready for another challenge. I spent 13 years in Caldwell. That's a long time for a city planner to be in one city. I'm not the kind of person that jumps from job to job to job. I'd like to invest myself and my skills into a certain position, to a certain city. I looked at Minot as a great opportunity. First of all, I was getting a little bit closer back to home. Yeah. You know, my parents are retired now, and they're getting up there in age, so I wanted to get a little bit closer back to home. But the thing that I really liked most about Minot is it has everything that you need. It has an international airport. It has great housing base. It has a great customer base. It's a retail hub for all of north central North Dakota. It's a destination for this area, and the disadvantage about living in a place like Caldwell is that we were competing with Boise and Nampa and the other big cities around there that were much bigger than us. Yeah. Here, we don't have any competition. We don't have any suburbs in Minot. It's nice to have the focus of this whole of growth and economic development is going to be right here in the hub of Minot. And it's a great opportunity for a planner like me to come in here and just see what I can do to help, for the city. The city's been, I think they've done some great work through the years, especially since the flood, with flood control. And they're definitely moving in the right direction, in my opinion. It's nice for me to come in here and to see that work that's taking place and be able to help make some enhancements along the way as well, and some suggestions, and develop some programs that are helping out people in Minot.
I'm going to ask you a specific quality questions later on, but here's a very speculative question that I've thought about as I've driven through North Dakota. You go drive through and you see ghost towns, right? And every state has them, but it's interesting in North Dakota because it's not a very populous area. And so what seems to have happened over time, 100 years, a long time, is that you had the farming communities and stuff like that. And then as technology grew, those kind of died off and they got sucked into the more populous area. So you take even a place like Velva, they'll have towns that are now ghost towns that are 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes away from them. And that's because now Velva's the hub for that area and people do that. So if you go and you fast forward, and this is where the speculative question comes in, you fast forward 50 years, does Minot suddenly do have suburbs? Does Burlington and Surrey, and I understand that this is very, very speculative, but just looking at growth, I mean, you've stayed at a city for 13 years. You probably saw some interesting things happen just in that span of time, which is a long time, as you mentioned, for being planning director. It's not the correct title, but close to it. What happens with that, with like a city like Minot? Does it suddenly start going in Burlington and Surrey start acting like suburbs? Is that what would naturally happen potentially?
Sure, Jonathan. I think there is a long-term potential to see those towns turn into more have a more of a suburban feel compared to Minot. And I think that not just Minot will see all the growth. I think those towns around Minot will see growth as well throughout into the future.
Right. Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. We're not growing as fast here as Caldwell was growing. We're not.
Absolutely.
We're growing at a much slower rate. I think our population here in 2010 was about 40,000, and today we're hovering around 48,000.
Gotcha.
So that's like 14 years later, we've only gained about 8,000 residents. So we're growing at a much slower rate.
Right.
But I think, long term, I think there's a possibility that you'll see that kind of growth happening in the other communities around us.
And for perspective, there was a town I lived in growing up that when we moved to it, it was around the 48,000. When we left, it was over 100,000 in 14 years or something. Like that's a substantial growth, and that's probably more along the lines of what you felt at Caldwell, was that substantial growth. Yeah, that's interesting. So what is, as you talk about growth patterns and stuff like that, there's been a lot of talk about the growth of Minot in conjunction to the budget. With some of the people that we've had on the podcast, they're like, well, our budget's growing faster than our people are. Our population what is kind of a proper rate of growth for a town of Minot with the purpose that we have?
Proper rate of growth, it depends. It really depends on your carrying capacity, how much capacity you have to grow with sewer and water, which what I understand, we still have plenty of capacity in both of those areas. It's going to get better when NAS gets hooked up to Minot as well. We'll have a better water supply at that point. So I think the potential for Minot to grow is there.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge that we have right now that we're facing is getting properties ready for development, ready for building permit ready, shovel ready.
Yeah.
We need to find some developers who want to acquire the land, install the infrastructure that's needed. You can't get a building permit until you have sewer lines in place, water lines in place, streets are built, and so on. So our biggest challenge right now is trying to find people to want to be able to get that work done and get these properties ready for development. I think Minot is primed for growth, but we need to have developers here and working in Minot to build these roads and build the infrastructure that's needed to allow us to grow.
I told you when we started this that we would start out talking about your office, and then we'd get into those other fun topics, and I totally have ventured away from that path. So we'll jump back to that, but it's very interesting stuff, and I want to talk about the developers coming to Minot and those things. Community and Economic Development Director. Sounds like a pretty detailed, lots of stuff going on in your office. Talk us through what your office is like, what kind of the things that you guys are taking care of, how your office is built, things like that.
Sure. So my office is pretty much divided into 3 divisions. We have the planning division, which is pretty small. We have like 4 full-time employees. That includes code enforcement. So we have 2 planners on staff, 1 code enforcement officer, and 1 administrative clerical staff. Then we have the inspections department, and the inspections department obviously handles building permits and building inspections. They have 1 inspector for every trade. We don't have 2 inspectors of any kind there. So we have a commercial building inspector, a residential building inspector, mechanical and plumbing inspectors. The state of North Dakota now handles electrical inspections, so we don't handle that anymore. We have a building official and a senior inspector. And then we have some permit tech staff that handle all the permitting within the staff. So we only have 14 full-time employees in the department.
Wow.
And we also handle economic development too, but only very specific functions of economic development. I don't want to make it sound like we're doing all the economic development, because we're not. I know the Chamber, EDC, and other organizations do economic development as well. We're not duplicating their services. The things that we provide, we provide administration of the Renaissance Zone, the Facade Improvement Program, TIF districts, and we also handle retail recruitment. Those are the 4 major areas that we handle. So
a lot of the work that you're doing is not necessarily, the last subdivision was recruitment specifically, but it's not about wowing businesses to Minot by going to whatever conference and showing how great Minot is. Mm-hmm. It's more or less making sure that the downtown has a plan in place for growth, so that when that business is looking at downtown Minot, they're like, yeah, this is a community we would want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Except for the retail recruitment, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be the only recruitment portion of that development.
Pretty much. And when it comes to retail recruitment, we do have a company that helps us with that. Okay. An outside company. Our job pretty much is to try to be matchmakers, and in terms of they'll tell us they're looking for a parcel that's at least 1 acre in size. It needs to be along a major arterial road, or they want to be near the mall, and we try to help find them sites that would suit their needs.
So do they provide you a list of franchises or a list of companies that are interested in potentially coming to Minot?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and every year I go to the what's called the ICSC conference in Las Vegas. Okay. And they set up meetings with all these different places. It's a 2-day conference, and I go and meet with all these retailers and sell them on Minot, and let them know the opportunities that are available here. They're really excited about the new hospital that was built and the new high school. Okay. And right now, North Hill is lacking with retail development, as you know. Yeah. And that new high school, I think, is going to help attract more retailers. We just got a building permit a couple of months ago for new McDonald's in North Hill, which is a first. Yeah, so that's crazy. I'm hoping that's like a domino effect up there. We'll see more commercial development up on North Hill thanks to the new high school. But the 2 things I hear from the retailers are that they're excited about the new hospital and the new high school.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, North Hill, it's been interesting to see it developed over time. Obviously, Marketplace was one of the first ones. I was actually looking up something on Marketplace and saw what their dream of what that area would look like with multi-use space, sidelining and stuff, and now there's a high school there. It's interesting to see how stuff like that develops. But you're very close to the base, too. And right now, for a person that lives on base to get to McDonald's, it's going to be a trek. It's going to be a 30-minute drive probably, and having a McDonald's there cuts it down, and other retail would definitely cut down that travel to the mall, to our shopping district, as the wayfinding signs call it. And so
if we can get more retail on North Hill, I think that would alleviate the traffic congestion we see on Broadway. Yeah. I think a lot of the traffic congestion you see on Broadway is people in North Hill having to drive to South Hill for all their retail needs.
So traffic congestion, probably a little bit outside of your purview, but you think something's going to have to change on North Hill around the high school? Right now, that's a 2-lane road going into the high school and stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Monday night, our traffic engineer addressed the council with that. He stated that they're going to be monitoring that very closely. Yeah, and makes sense. You never know. It might. Right. Someday it'll probably have to be widened, but I don't know if today is that day. I don't think so.
Absolutely. So you're a department leader, obviously, and that means that this whole budget conversation means something a little bit different to you than everybody else. The department leaders would all have the same view, a similar view as you, but you're not just an employee. You actually have a team. A position could be cut, a position could be added for you, potentially. We'll talk about that. And you're not just a taxpayer where you're like, I want a cheaper tax bill. That's all I want. I don't care what it takes. Just give me a cheaper tax bill. Seems like that's been a lot of conversation this time around. So talk about that aspect of your position, maybe even creating, like how you're able to determine when new positions need to be created, how you go about presenting that. What goes into all that?
Well, it really goes on the needs of our customers. And right now, our busiest point, the busiest area in my department right now is with commercial plan reviews.
Okay.
So let's say like McDonald's, let's use McDonald's as an example. They had to come in and apply for building permits. And with their permits, they have to submit their blueprints for the building, right? And our staff has to check to make sure that those blueprints basically meet all of our codes and requirements, make sure it meets ADA, stormwater runoff requirement, everything that you can imagine that we have to review. In recent years, our permits have spiked to the point where the staffing that we have in place cannot cover those responsibilities. Right now, my building official and my senior inspector are handling most of those reviews. We don't have a full-time position.
Wow.
Williston and West Fargo have full-time plan review positions. Bismarck has 2. We have 0 right now.
And Williston and West Fargo both be somewhat, almost substantially smaller than us.
About half of our size.
Yeah.
Correct. So, this position we had in our budget before 2018. There was a lot of budget cuts back in around 2018. This is one of those positions that was cut.
Okay.
Now, in the beginning, things were pretty slow. We were coming out of the oil boom, and things were slowing down. It made sense maybe back then to cut it.
Yeah.
But over the last couple of years, my staff has been stressed out. And what in terms of trying to get these plan reviews done, because our customers are waiting. They can't start work on their projects until they get their building permit. Well, they can't get their building permit until their plans have been reviewed and made sure that they're correct and accurate and meet all of our codes. So we've been stuck in the situation where we've gone from a 2 to 3 week wait on these plan reviews to 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
So our customers have been waiting about twice as long as they were a couple of years ago.
That's crazy.
This full-time position, I'm hoping we can bring it back down to the 2-week level. That's 3 weeks at the most, I'm hoping. So I brought a proposal to the city manager and the finance director, and then we eventually brought it to the city council. We're going to propose a fee increase to help cover this new position. It's not going to come out of property taxes. Yeah. So the customers that are using the service are going to pay 100% of this commercial plan reviewer's fee.
Yep.
So that was I told the city manager we needed this position. He said, "Fine, we're not raising property taxes for it." He made that very clear with me. So we developed a way where we can do a proposed fee increase. And I'll be taking that to council in September. I'm going to ask for a budget amendment. So that way we can get this position hired sometime this winter and get this person trained. So that way next construction season, they're fully trained and ready to go when the snow melts, because that's when we get really busy.
So budget amendment for the 2024 budget then?
Yes. But it's also proposed for the 2025 budget.
And I saw in the 2025 budget, and one of the conversations was there will be fees, but not a fee to expedite the process. Correct? That's
correct. Yeah.
Right.
It'll be first come, first serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And then are you guys losing a position as well?
Yes, we are. The city manager's budget did not have the economic development administrator position in it, which had previously worked in my office. So now I'm going to have to do all that work.
You feeling the effect?
I'm feeling it. Yeah. I've been feeling it since December of last year. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a moment. The time that it takes to be a director of a department at the city and the stress. You drive around town and you see something that doesn't look up to code or up to spec or whatever. What goes through your brain? Do you just get your blinders on and just keep driving, or is it something?
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't. No. We if it's a code violation, like something code enforcement related, I'm not afraid to tell my staff, hey, take a look at this address. Usually in many situations, they already have it on their radar. Yeah, I'll ask them about it, and they're, I sent a letter to that property owner last week or something. So I do my best. To try to help out where I can, but my staff is usually on top of it. The general public's on top of it even more. Our code enforcement staff is one person. We do have a summertime helper right now too.
Okay.
And that's another budget proposal that I have for next year as well. Is right now, again, one full-time staff and one summertime helper. Okay. I'm proposing it to eliminate the summertime help next year and propose to have a year-round part-time position replace that person.
Makes sense.
The advantage of the summertime help is that you get a young, energetic person that's out of school and they want resume building experience, and they usually do a really good job for us.
Right.
But it takes a few weeks to get them trained, and then they're here for a couple of months, and then they go back to school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I would rather have year-round staff. We don't have to worry about training every year. If we can have them here year-round and help out when things get busy for us. Again, the spring seems to be our busy time, not only with permitting, but also with code enforcement, because when the snow melts, that's when the phone calls
exposes things.
That's when the phone calls coming in. That's when the weeds start growing. Yep. You start seeing all the junk on the ground and things like that. That's when our code staff goes from being somewhat busy to being slammed, and just like that in no time. So,
do you ever get sick of those? I mean, you probably don't answer them directly. Sometimes you may have to, but do you ever get sick of the list of all the neighbors' yards that need to be mowed or stuff like that just comes out?
Yeah, there's repeat customers. Oh, yeah. Right. And some of them we're taking care of right now. In the last month or so, I think we've done 4 demolition orders for homes that have been problems of ours for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
where we've just had enough, and it reached the point where these homes were inhabitable, and we had to go to the council and get an order to demolish these homes. Right. It's just
that's hard.
Yeah, exactly. If 90% of our code enforcement cases are usually solved by the first letter. You send a letter out, 9 out of 10 people will clean it up on their own. It's the 1 out of 10 that take all of our time that just it drives us nuts. The other 9 out of 10 are fine. They're usually they have a good excuse. Maybe they broke their leg or something. They can't mow their lawn, or there's something holding them back from getting the work done. But they'll find a way to get it done.
Yeah. So when you drive around town at 7 o'clock at night, work's done. Are you able to enjoy your drive around town?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah.
You are? You don't still have the work hat on?
No.
Where you're worried about? Okay, that's good.
There's only, I do, I'm a salaried employee, but I have a personal life too. And it's, they have to have that work-life balance, and I can't be constantly working all the time.
No, you can't be.
And I had a funny thing is my former boss out in Caldwell, he was the mayor. We didn't have a city manager there. Okay. We had a strong mayor form of government, and he worked all the time. I'd come into the office on Monday morning, and there'd be a voicemail message from 7:30 a.m. on Saturday saying this lawn needs to be mowed. This lawn needs to be mowed. He's on you can tell he's on a cell phone driving and telling me about all these lawns that need to be mowed. So.
That's exciting. You got to love that. Very interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the downtown revitalization. This was something that in 2019, when you were coming in, it was a subject. The editor of the Minot Daily News wrote a very interesting article. The editor at that time, the Minot Daily News, wrote a very interesting article about the subject of whether or not Minot would allow or accept their downtown area to be revitalized. And it seems like in the past few years, I mean, let's just call it the last 5, since that's the time frame we're talking, there's been a lot of things that have happened in the downtown.
Yeah.
How have you felt that process has went?
I think it's gone about as well as can be expected. First of all, we've had the Renaissance Zone program here for about 25 years now.
Okay.
So that program has really helped get downtown to where it is today. There's been like over 85 cases that have been approved in that time and completed, where I can go show you examples of buildings that today would be bulldozed.
Wow.
Or would be on the bulldoze list.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Renaissance Zone program and providing the assistance that the property owner needed to help fix up these buildings.
Okay.
The weakness of the Renaissance Zone program is we're very limited by the state of North Dakota about where it can be located in our city. We only get 42 blocks that we can choose within Minot for our zone. So
do they have to be contiguous, or can you have little islands?
Yeah, you can have up to 2 islands now.
Okay.
But most of our zone consists of downtown and then North Broadway.
Okay.
And there is an island on far North Broadway, like along the Vegas Hotel. We added all those hotels along North Broadway to the Renaissance Zone recently. They need all the help.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'd be great to have that redone.
I can probably find another 42 blocks that we can easily put into the program too.
Right. So is that something you can move over time as well? So you can, as things get revitalized, you can shut that down and then.
Yep. Yeah. Once a block is completed. That's the term. Once it's completed, you can take it off the list and you can replace it elsewhere within the city. So the Renaissance Zone has done a great job with helping with downtown, and I think the Facade Improvement Program has helped take it to the next level.
Right.
Where we're a lot of these buildings that are downtown need a facelift on the front side. And the Facade Improvement Program has helped provide some financial assistance to help beautify these buildings, put in high-quality windows, clean up the brick, put in some nice features on the building, gooseneck lighting and things like that. There's been some great examples in our downtown recently of facade improvement program.
Yeah.
I think we have had like 14 applications. I think about 8 of them have been approved.
Wow.
And finished. And then in the 3, I think we adopted the program in 21. So it's 3 years old now.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
So both those programs take some heat every once in a while. Every once in a while, you'll hear people saying this, that, and the other thing. And this is something that I think about when I watch city council meetings, especially budget time. That's where it's the most highlighted to me, is like talking about the pay plan, for instance. Those are people, city employees, potentially watching that city council with their pay raise in question and stuff, what's going to happen, right? And so take the Facade Program and the Renaissance Zone Program, both things that you care about, that you're very active in. How do you balance hearing all the talk, and maybe some of it's stuff that we should be receptive to, maybe some of it's not. Not all of it's just noise. How do you balance that with the mission that you're on, and balancing that with the talk that you're hearing, if that makes sense?
You know, the talk I've been hearing has been pretty positive, actually.
That's awesome.
The feedback from downtown business owners and
see what
property
you're
owners
saying.
has been very positive.
Yep.
I think last count is I've got like 8 or 9 other properties that are interested in the facade improvement program right now. They've come in and talked to me about it at least, and I think there's another one that's coming in next week to meet with me. So there's people that are interested in the program. They're seeing what's happening with these other buildings. I think it's building some excitement in the downtown, and people are looking at these buildings that are being fixed up, and they're like, I'd love to have my building look like this, right?
Yeah.
But
some of them look very good. Where for the Renaissance Zone, where do you see? We have the downtown, and then we have that island on North Hill. With all the hotels, where do you see another potential place as some of these projects get completed?
I think East Burdick can certainly use some help.
Yeah.
Valley Street can certainly use some help as well.
Seems like the east side of town gets forgotten about, but needs some. It's very commercial,
right? 4th Avenue Northwest can probably has a couple of blocks there that could use some assistance as well.
Good block.
We could probably double the size of the Renaissance Zone, and I can still complain that we need more.
That's
need
crazy.
more blocks. Yeah,
that's crazy.
But it's a state requirement. We can't go beyond 42.
Yeah, got to get onto the state about that. So one of the things that you get to deal with in the downtown is a matter, and there's probably a couple potentially. I don't know if this other one affects you. It's something that came up to my mind while we were talking, not before, so I didn't ask directly. And that is Popeyes. So, and if it doesn't affect you, then that's fine. It can be ignored. But I'm going to talk about Popeyes and the lights downtown.
Okay.
Where both of those are situations where neighbors are unhappy. In Popeyes, it's a different deal. The neighbors are unhappy, but also it wasn't done properly, so they have a very high reason to be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the deal downtown is different in that downtown association is just trying to put up lights. One of the building owners says, hey, I just don't want them on at this time, or on at all, probably, whatever.
Yeah.
And you get to go and step into the middle of that situation. Now, we don't need to talk about the words that have been fired back and forth, but what's your approach as you go and get complaints like that brought to you? Obviously, there has to be a very based approach that's brought that can be defended in front of the city council, and maybe even further than that.
Mm-hmm. So the approach is, when we get a complaint, is obviously we have to investigate it, and usually if it's a complaint between property owners, obviously you want to listen to both sides.
Yeah.
With the Popeye situation, there was they built the building in the wrong spot. They built it like 10 or 12 feet away from where they should have.
Yep.
the violation of that situation occurred because the second driveway of their drive-through lane was in an area that was supposed to be set aside as a landscape buffer. The building's fine. The building is not within the setback area. It's the driveway. The drive-through, I should say, is in there. So we're working with the property owner right now to get that fixed. And we had a very productive meeting with him a couple of weeks ago, and he submitted some plans that we've reviewed, and they look good to us. We're expecting to see work take place this fall to help remedy that situation.
That's awesome.
With the downtown the downtown lighting situation. That was something I was thrown into last spring, I think it was, and there was some language in our code our land development ordinance that gives me some authority to regulate lighting over 16 feet in height, and that's ornamental lighting, not over 16 feet in height. The reason it was in the code to begin with is because our downtown is a mixed-use environment where you're going to have businesses typically on the first floor, and then probably office space or mostly residential space on the upper floors. So you want to at least make the upper floors a little bit more appealing for people because it's a living environment for them. Yeah. So I was placed in this situation where, you had one property owner who didn't want the lights. The other property owners was across the street wanted the lights. Yeah. And I'm pitted in this situation like, what am I supposed to do? Well, I want downtown to look beautiful. I don't want to tell the property owners across the street they can't have lights on their buildings. But then again, I do understand the situation that Mr. Thomas, the person who made the complaints, was in because their lights are affecting his quality of life. So I was stuck in a situation where I had to send a letter to the DBPA asking them to turn off the lights at 11 p.m. Yep. And the reason I chose 11 p.m. is, there's two reasons. The first one is it's consistent with our noise ordinance. Yeah. So if our noise ordinance says that after 11 o'clock is quiet hours, then you be quiet, and then it should be the same with the lighting, I think. Yeah. And then the second reason is that I don't have a night staff in my department. We all work banker hours during the day, and I don't want to be going out there at 2 o'clock in the morning having to take pictures of violations and stuff like that. So 11 p.m. was still a reasonable hour for me if I had to go out and take a photograph. Yeah. So the city council made the decision on Monday night, and now it was only direction that they gave me. They didn't change the law. I want to make that very clear, that the law still is the same, but they gave me direction to amend the land development ordinance to only regulate lighting that impacts the airport. Okay. And any lighting, if they were to adopt this, any lighting complaints between neighbors would be a civil issue, and we're going to stay out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So because when you get into that issue, you have to be careful and mindful of the fact that, Christmas light season, there are some people that have some very, very dramatic Christmas light scenes that affect traffic in neighborhoods, that affect, in my opinion, it could affect neighbors' qualities of life. Mm-hmm. And so you're making this decision as your rule dictated, you should. Mm-hmm. And that could be very impactful to a lot of people beyond even the downtown potentially. Yeah,
actually the code only specifically called out downtown and plan unit developments. So like single family neighborhoods, it didn't give me an authority to regulate in a single family residential neighborhood. And I don't have the staffing to do that from time. We have 21,000 housing units in the city.
That'd be a pain.
That would be a pain, yeah.
So whatever precedent that you set there basically could not be used by neighbors directly with the city, essentially.
Yes.
Very cool. That's good knowledge to know. That way, hopefully we diverted a few phone calls right there. Let's talk about something a little bit more fun than conflict. Well, conflict to some people is a lot of fun. Yeah. They enjoy it, but that's not what we're about right now. You talked about some of the big projects that are going on, obviously, or getting developers to come into Minot and invest earlier, before we diverted our conversation. And so let's talk about how those conversations happen and what it takes, in your opinion, being part of this community and economic development. What does it take to make that happen? Is that something that needs to change with how we recruit, or is it something that needs to change within the city, or is it just time?
Can you repeat that again about recruitment? What kind of recruitment are you talking about?
Yeah, just to get more investors, and you're talking about getting builders and stuff like that to come in and build in Minot and invest that way in Minot.
Yeah, I think the thing for us to do is just to teach them how to become a developer.
Okay.
I think that's what I think a lot of people are interested in it, but they don't really understand it.
Okay.
And one of my proposals for the 2025 budget is to bring in national groups to come in and train locals on how to become developers in Minot.
I see. So rather than going and trying to recruit new development, or not new development companies, but whatever XYZ company to come in and build a $10 million project, start developing in Minot, people give them the tools so they can start developing in their hometown where they would be more passionate. Is that something that you see a block for people coming to Minot is, hey, you're out in the middle of, some people kill me for it, out in the middle of nowhere north, you don't have a major highway running through, such as 94, stuff like that, we're not interested in. Is that a roadblock that you guys encounter much?
I don't know if that's a roadblock or not, but I think there's a lot of local people here. I think they could be great land developers. It's just a matter of educating them on what it takes to become a successful land developer. And if we can get the right folks in here to help with that education piece, we can. I think that we can see the city really flourish. It's going to be hard for us to grow without people wanting to develop the infrastructure that's necessary for growth to happen.
See, I think most of mine just wants to see a Chick-fil-A here. So whatever it takes for us to get a Chick-fil-A, I think we should do it.
Yep, I keep hearing that. I keep hearing Red Lobster, although they're having some problems right now, it sounds like. But
you get way too much shrimp. It'll happen. Another one that's high on my list is Red Robin.
Okay.
I don't know if we could ever make that happen. I heard one time that there's a rumor that there was going to be a Red Robin, and it never happened. All right, so one that I guess this is another controversial project, and I guess that's the way it's going. But is the Big M building. That was an interesting project. Obviously, great things happening, and then catastrophe happens, and now here we're at. So in the current spot, is a Big M building in a good position to take investors out, in a good position itself? Like 5 years ago, it was in a terrible position. There was asbestos, there was all this stuff. But is all that stuff taken care of now? Do you know?
As far as I know, the asbestos abatement has been completed there. So that was the thing that was holding it back all along, and that's what they got the TIF for. Yep. The city council approved a TIF, I think, is in 2022 to help fund the asbestos abatement within that building. So my understanding is, in speaking to the folks from Epic before the company went under, they've already ordered all the glass. The glass is somewhere around Minot for the it's ready to go. It's just a matter of finding a new developer to pick up the project and install it. It sounds like So they actually started putting glass in on the first floor before they went on.
Yep,
so
I saw some of that.
They were So they my understanding is all the glass is in Minot. It should be ready to go. It's just finding a new developer to pick it up and take it over.
Interesting.
So I wish they could have gotten the skin of that building done before this all happened. It would look a heck of a lot nicer today than it looks now.
It does. It would have. But it's neat to hear that the asbestos is, because that's probably the biggest detractor for a future investor to come in and want to take over.
Yep.
All right. So talked about a lot of things. Talked about North Hill. We talked about Big M, downtown. What's the things that make you enjoy your job, that make you keep going every day, bring you back to work?
It's something new every day.
Yeah.
Like whether it's different type of business. There's always, you get phone calls every day, or not, I shouldn't say every day, maybe once a week or once a month. You scratch your head and you go, I've never had a phone call like this before. I got a phone call a couple years ago about the Rage Room that was built. You remember that? And I've never heard of such a thing. They asked them to explain this to me over the phone, and they wanted to put it in their garage. Actually, I said, you can't do that in a residential neighborhood. I'm sorry.
Right, that'd be dangerous.
I steered them towards a commercial neighborhood where it belonged.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it always feels like there's something new out there, something different. My job is not boring. It's not monotonous. It's always interesting, and there's always. So it's rewarding. It really is rewarding to be a part of the things that are happening in our community, And sometimes it's good to be there to help with advice and guidance, and sometimes it's good to just let them just try to stay out of the way as best as you can and let them go. If they know what they're doing and they know our codes and everything, and as long as they're following the rules, more power to them. I mean, we try to help our customers along the way as much as we can. We offer free meetings with all of our customers before they start a project. They're called development review team meetings, where they can sit down and meet with staff from my department, planning, inspections, and then engineering and fire, and the park district is even invited, and we invite the chamber EDC and other groups. If it's out in the 2 mile outside of city limits, we'll invite Minot Rural Fire. We'll invite the county highway department if necessary. We invite a lot, and we try to guide them through the permitting process. Explaining to them, these are the rules. You're going to need to apply for a rezone or a subdivision plat. You'll need to get a building permit from the inspections department. We basically try to help you. That way they can have one meeting with 5 or 6 different staff people, then 5 or 6 meetings with 5 or 6 different staff people.
Right. Streamline everybody's time
exactly.
Right there. Fast forward 5 years. We're coming to an end, but we'll throw in another speculative question. Fast forward at 5 years. What do you see happening in my, what is Minot still the unique community where we have the farm, we have the oil, and hovering around the 50,000 mark? What do you see Minot in 5 years?
I think in Minot you'll see a lot of growth around our new hospital. I think you'll see a lot of the land out there start developing.
Right.
I think that you'll see more commercial growth on North Hill. From what I've been talking with retailers, are definitely interested in the new high school that's being built up there. Actually, now it's open. It opened today, actually.
It did. It did open today. Yeah, there was a lot of traffic on North Hill. I live on North Hill. Give us some names of these retailers. And you can't. I know. Well, we always take our shot here at least once. So. Well,
I can tell you that I'll give you one hint. Duncan's is now looking at all of North Dakota, not just Minot, but they've been working their way from Wisconsin and Minnesota, and now North Dakota is next on their list.
There you go. That'd
might
be
be seeing some. They're looking at 2 stores in Minot probably next year.
Okay, but so let me ask you a question on that then. Do you when something like that happens, where there's a national company that comes in like that, which is great, you have Slim Chickens, national franchise, maybe an individual franchisee in Minot though,
right?
But when a national company goes and invests, do you get a lot of feedback from community members like we don't want that, or hey, this is great? It could be good or positive or indifferent.
I don't get a lot of feedback. Nobody calls me and says I don't like this or anything. I don't get phone calls like that. But I'm sure on social media I see quite a bit of it as well. Yeah.
Social media is a blast.
Yeah,
the city social media page that is a good follow. If you're not following the city social media page, you should. Because they do a great job. But also there's some great conversations.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So very, very interesting. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of a busy schedule to stop by.
You're welcome, and I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Yeah, let's do it sometime again. This has been another episode of Minot Matters here at the Dakota, brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, become part of the Dakota community, where we continue to bring you great content every week. Thank you for watching this episode. Have a great day.